Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the Community Planning Committee meeting of Monday, September the 11th. And we have a presentation tonight from Callum Matthews at the Tourism Vancouver Island, and he's going to be talking about an interesting development around short-term rentals in municipal and regional district tax, sorry, FCRs and also hotels, I believe. Okay. But before that, committee, are there any additions to the agenda? Mayor Little is pointing to the pinks, which we will add to correspondence under section 8. Okay. Hearing no further additions, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, accept the agenda? Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Callum, Mr. Matthews, please come to the podium, and I'm going to switch seats here. So, sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Callum Matthews. I'm the Vice President of Sustainability and Strategy at the Tourism Association of Vancouver Island, where we currently do business under the name 4VI. I was actually supposed to just be here to answer any questions that might come up following the presentation, which was supposed to be delivered by my colleague and Economic Development Officer with the District of Sooke, Gail Scott, but she was unable to join at last moment as she's unwell. So I'm going to do my best to harness my best Gail impression and kind of walk you through the slide deck that she delivered. Gail has a really extensive background in economic development and tourism specifically, and she's been working through her role at the District of Sooke to try to help create a new vision for how tourism can bring benefit to the residents of Sooke and help also try to protect ecologically sensitive areas and contribute to a thriving local business economy. And one of the areas of interest for Gail is how neighboring communities can work collaboratively. I think when we all travel as individuals, we have no idea where different municipal boundaries are, and the visitors here on the island certainly don't know that either. So there's huge opportunity to work collaboratively, and Gail's done a ton of exciting work in that space. So I'll walk you through her presentation here and do my best to answer any questions afterward if there's time. So, first of all, MRDT, the Municipal and Regional District Tax. It's a provincial program that's been in place since the 1980s, and the goal of it is to really help support and manage the tourism industry across British Columbia. We kind of colloquially call it a hotel tax, and it's a fee of 2 or 3% that's collected from visitors at fixed roof accommodation properties. So it doesn't matter whether it is a formal hotel or motel or a short-term rental with an Airbnb proprietor. The tax is collected, remitted to the Ministry of Finance, and then flows to the community in question. And currently across the province, and certainly on Vancouver Island, the majority of communities are currently accessing funds through the municipal and regional district tax, with some of the communities and areas captured in the map here. But it's a little bit broader than what's captured there. And there's a fairly lengthy process to be able to access the funds that I won't get into a ton of detail here, but in short, you need to have the support of the tourism industry, which would include hoteliers, and then also from local government, and you need to have a really clear 5-year plan for what you'll do with the revenue. And this is, in short, you can think of it as a legislative tool available to communities to generate revenue to help invest in tourism and manage tourism so that it's working in a way that is balanced with the community and supporting a community's interests. So there was a recent change that enabled communities to increase the tax rate from 2% to 3%. And we're now seeing that happening across BC with, I would say now the majority of communities have either moved to 3% or intend to in the very near future. There was also a really positive change in that the eligible uses for the funds, which traditionally had been marketing, are now much more broader. So you can support what we would call destination development. So infrastructure that supports the visitor economy. And interestingly, it can also support affordable housing for the benefit of residents and community members. And recently, the community on Cortez Island got MRDT in place, and they're using all of the funding to help support affordable housing developments. So an interesting change in the past few years. MRDT is collected, as I mentioned, pretty well any fixed roof property. It doesn't apply to campgrounds or RV parks, just fixed roof properties. And there's a little bit of a process where the Ministry of Finance, who administers the program, takes a really nominal administrative fee. I think it's somewhere around $10 a month per hotel that's paying the fee. And the rest of it goes to a designated recipient. So in the case of Sooke, where they're currently pursuing putting MRDT in place, that would flow to the district of Sooke as an organization, and they'd be responsible for executing the strategy. So a couple of things here around some of the eligible expenses I mentioned. Promotion and marketing was the traditional use, but with the way that we've seen the visitor economy grow, there was a lot of interest from the industry to support other types of investments, which are captured here. So we see lots of trails, signage, ambassador programs, strategic planning, operating visitor and information centers, and then that affordable housing piece, which can be used for planning work, survey work in a community, or actual construction and financing of projects over a long term. So here's a snapshot of the application process. You need to have a governance model in place. You have to have a high degree of engagement with the community, with local government, and with the tourism industry. You develop a strategic business plan, which really articulates a 5-year vision for what you'll do with the funds. And then it's important to note that it actually requires support from the proprietors of fixed roof properties that have 4 or more rooms. So a little typo on this slide. And you actually require a physical signature on a piece of paper from those accommodation providers with 4 or more rooms. And you have to have a majority in order to put it in place. And then support from local government, and then it goes into Destination British Columbia and the Ministry of Finance, who go through kind of a final approval process. And the ministry will eventually notify if you've been successful. And it generally takes about a year, start to finish, to have MRDT in place. Although it does really change depending on the size of the community and the complexity of the planning work required. A couple of key success factors around having MRDT come into place and actually be successful in the long term. Really strong local oversight of the spend and strategy. We at 4VI really believe that tourism only works when it's benefiting local residents, and ensuring that the MRDT plan is in tune with important planning documents like OCPs and other initiatives at a local level is really critical. Transparency, all clear financial reporting in terms of use of the funds, benefits that are resulting, and challenges. And strong local governments is really the most critical piece. Where we see challenges with MRDT is when there's a shaky governance structure in place. And then lastly, a couple other areas, having a clearly defined boundary. So for the district of Sooke, who's embarking on the work, it'll be the boundaries of the district. But they are interested in some potential collaborations with neighboring communities as well. And then last but not least, whichever organization is managing the MRDT needs to have the capacity to do so. As with any sort of government program, there is a fairly heavy administrative component to it to ensure that there's good transparency in place and the plans being actioned. So you need fairly high capacity organization or individual to manage that. So a couple of the benefits, first of all, it's consistent and reliable funding to communities. With the exception of a little blip in kind of 2020, 2021, funding year over year has been quite consistent. Typically increases sort of 2 to 8% a year, depending on what's happening. If there's a new hotel that comes into a town, there's obviously often a big jump. So it allows for long-term investment in the sector. funds can be used to manage how tourism works in the community. And really, a best practice approach is trying to maximize the benefits and being very honest about the challenges that tourism can bring to communities and actively trying to manage that. We really feel that if, in the social media world now, if you're not telling your own story and managing tourism in your community, others will be doing it for you on their smartphones. And MRDT can really help to have a strategic approach there. And then, the last point I'll touch on here is again around that affordable housing piece, where we are seeing some, really fabulous examples from communities across the island investing in, general affordable housing initiatives for, any community. In some places, the affordable housing initiatives are targeted towards, service sector workers. But the beautiful part of the affordable housing program through MRDT is it is not one size fits all. You can really customize it to the needs of a specific community. Very quickly, just a little bit about 4VI. So our legal name is the Tourism Association of Vancouver Island. We do business as 4VI, and we're ultimately dedicated to ensuring that tourism and travel is a force for good for communities across Vancouver Island and operate as a social enterprise. One of the things we love to help with is MRDT planning, and we really believe that if you have strong governance in place and a solid plan, you can bring some really big benefits to a local community and support economic development. So that MRDT planning is an area that we love to get involved. Our team is a mix of tourism marketers, destination developers, and also sustainability experts, trying to help communities and businesses reduce their impact and maximize their benefit. And we also have a really major focus as an organization on climate action in tourism. And last but not least here, the comment around the $10,000 for an annual service fee, I'm not exactly sure what that was referring to. At 4VI, there's no service fee or cost that's applied towards to communities. So as I mentioned, Gail has an interest in expanding the way that communities can work together when it comes to managing tourism. And the District of Sooke is, as was mentioned, pursuing MRDT for their own district boundaries, but wanted to inform neighboring communities of this program and a potential opportunity to collaborate. So this is a snapshot of the communities that Gail and her colleagues at the District of Sooke think have some very common and shared interests when it comes to managing tourism. And I will leave things there. One of the final things that Gail had asked me to share is that Destination British Columbia, the Provincial Crown Corporation for Tourism, has set aside some funding for the District of Sooke and neighboring communities to do some joint planning work around how tourism can be managed and bring benefits to local residents, and how it can also help to protect sensitive natural areas, and we're really managing tourism in a proactive way. So it's no cost to participate in that program, and the end deliverable from a really well-regarded consultant, Louise Brown, is a strategy on how communities from Metchosin to Port Renfrew can try to work collaboratively to manage the visitor economy and increase its benefits. So thank you, and hopefully I covered everything Gail was wanting to go through. She's done a huge amount of work, and just want to extend my thanks to her.
Great. Just stay there for 1
All
moment.
right.
Committee, are there any questions for Mr. Matthews? Very good.
And just one technical one, you said 4 rooms, fixed roof with 4 rooms. Is that 4 bedrooms or rooms?
So it would be 4 rooms that could be individually rented. So a motel with 4 rooms would count. Another interesting one, if there's somebody who has Airbnbs that they operate, and they have 4 different Airbnb units, that would also count. And in the case where a community may not have 4 or any hotels or properties that collect the extra PST point and counted as being eligible to vote, then it would go down to local government level to kind of make the decision, and that MRDT tax at either 2 or 3% would be implemented on all of the other properties. So like short-term rentals, etc., and there just wouldn't be a vote for it, if that helps.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
interesting. Great. Mr. Matthews, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we will next move to public participation. I just want to mention a few things about public participation. As you approach the mic, please say your name and what street you live on. If you wish to talk about anything on the community planning agenda, and that includes the development variance permit for 1050 Matheson Lake Road, please use public participation. With one exception, I don't know the applicants for the development variance permit for the Gallagher's. Are they in the audience tonight?
No, they're not.
They're not. Okay. Okay. So if anybody wants to speak to the DVP for 1050 Matheson Lake Road, please use public participation. And there we go. Mr. Smurfett, please say your name.
Good evening. My name's Gary Smurfett at 3950 Gilbert Drive. I'm wishing to make a short statement regarding item 7B on your agenda, which is the Center Mountain Stormwater Detention Pond memo that's from the chairman. I note that from this memo, there's now a third draft of the Stormwater Management Plan that has been presented to the District of Metchosin. The memo says that this draft provides more details that were missing from the first draft that was given to Metchosin. I'm hoping that the third draft will be sent to MEAC and PTAC for another review as per our policy. The question I'm asking, though, is why are members of the council-appointed Bufferlands Working Committee, which includes the working group, required to submit an FOI in order to obtain copies of these documents? And that's what I had to do to get the first stormwater management plan. And now there's a second one and a third one, and reviewed by other consultants. Why is this required? I and probably a lot of other citizens would like an opportunity to review and comment on this before the CAO provides written opinion as to whether or not the stormwater management plan is acceptable to the District of Metchosin. And I'm not saying that we need to all have final copies of everything, but if it's put onto a stick, computer stick, and they're sold to us for $10 or $20, I think that's an easy way to deal with it. And it would sure make things a lot easier, rather than having us go through the formal process of an FOI, which requires additional costs to the public, time from staff, and of course, council or budget monies to hire consultants. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smurfett.
It's now my time.
Yes, please. Oh, yeah. Then we'll circulate your materials. And one thing I do have to also say about public participation, there's a 4-minute time limit. There's quite a bit on the agenda tonight, so I am going to do my best to enforce that. But name and street number, please, Mr. Phillips.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and Councillors Donaldson, Gray, Epp, and Sooke. My name is Jeanette McMillan, and I live on Duke Road. I live on Duke Road East. The reason that I'm here today, this evening, is not to present a formal proposal, but to make the council aware of activities that have been going on in our neighbourhood that we likely will bring to a formal proposal in the future, but it's just to give you a heads up of what's happening. So for 25 years ago, when I first moved to Duke Road, there was a committee of residents who worked to develop a trail along Duke Road as far as it goes right now. There's a walking trail that's on the water side, and it's an even, straight trail, and then it comes up around the bend onto Duke Road East, and there it stops abruptly in a dangerous corner, and it's very shaded. And typically when I walk that road, when a bus or a big truck comes by, or even smaller cars, I have to actually scramble up onto people's property to get away from the traffic. And really, I am just a long-term resident on Duke Road. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I'm concerned about safety. There's increasing traffic on Duke Road and very fast traffic, especially in the valley there on Duke Road. And I'm a concerned citizen. So right now we're just a small group of women, mother and grandmothers, and we are concerned with the unsafe road conditions on Duke Road East especially. So what we really want is to extend the trail from where it ends abruptly along Duke Road East up to Metchosin Road. The reason for our hopes and dreams are because there's dangerous places where the current trail ends, just as I said. There's excessive speed in the Duttonall area of Duke Road, where the topography is that the road goes down so sharply and then comes up on the other side. And in that valley, it's a riparian zone, and there's a lot of wildlife traveling through that. There's been a big buck and a smaller deer killed on that road just in the last week in that particular spot. Children are needing to walk up all the way up to, all along Duke Road and up to where the bus picks them up at the end of Metchosin Road or the end of Duke Road on Metchosin Road. So they're walking along there with no shoulder. If they walk facing traffic, there's a drop off of about 3 meters at some point, with maybe 16 inches of area for them to walk. And more and more people are walking the road, and it's like I said, the shoulders are very narrow, and there's people from Pelican especially. There's a seniors community at the top of Pelican. They walk the road all the time, and particularly to come down Duke Road East, people are coming from Royal Bay and they're walking in the middle of the road, and it's very fast traffic in there. So what we're doing to work towards our goal right now, we're not asking anything of council except to let you know that this is what we're doing. Right now, just in the last 2 weeks, I've sat at the end of my driveway around dinner time with a chair and a little table, and I capture anybody who's walking by, and virtually everybody is supportive. There's only been a few people who have not been supportive of a trail extension along that road, because some people perceive that they actually own the land right to the pavement. I don't know. Anyway, there's people who perceive that, and also other people who say they walk trails all over Metchosin, and why do we think we're so special that we need a safe walking trail off-road? I mean, we're looking at something like what Kangaroo Road has, or even Pears Road, something like that. We're not asking for anything fancy. So in the 2 weeks that I've been collecting names, I've collected 114 names of people who are very keen to see something change along there. And not only is it a safety issue and a really urgent thing that we need to do, it's also looking to the future. Royal Bay is not going to go away. And we're finding that people feel the need to drive a very short distance, even to Tower Point, rather than walking that distance because it's unsafe. They could walk, and a lot of people want to walk.
So Ms. McMillan, sorry, I'm going to give you a 1-minute warning.
Yep, I'm done actually. We're just presenting our information and our letter of expression. It's an expression of interest letters that we've been collecting names on. It's not a petition, just people who are interested, and that will be presented to the Parks and Trust Committee on September 19th. And interestingly enough, people we talk to, citizens, want to participate in helping build the trail, and some are willing to contribute money. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Great. Thank you very much. And you're very right. There is a Parks and Trails meeting on the 19th. True. True. Get the nod from our Parks and Trails coordinator. And we'll talk about it at that time. What's really fantastic to hear is that there are people who are willing to help maintain the trail as well in the local area. So that's a good thing. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else for public participation during the community planning meeting?
Kim Hill, 1070 Brookview Drive. I'd just like to reiterate what Mr. Smurfett said. It's been very frustrating trying to get information, and I can't see the reason for this lack of transparency. I think it flies in conflict with some promises that I've heard from you folks. And the sense that I have in Metchosin in general in the past, which I hope we're not losing that openness. Just mentioning.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. And just, there is an issue that we face in terms of freedom of information requirements. The fact that the plan is generated by a third party for a third party and comes to us without, I don't know, a waiver or caveat to distribute. We hear your concerns, we hear Mr. Smurfett's concerns as well, and that's where we're kind of left with in terms of the full release of information. So, great.
Beth Bacon, Metchosin resident, just for clarification, do you want us to talk about the Beckingham subdivision in this meeting or in the council meeting?
Probably best council.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Lisa Gee, Kangaroo Road. I just wanted to, because it was in the place I saw it addressed, the Working Dog Group Committee, and I just wanted to lend my voice in support of them. I think they've done some excellent work, and I encourage the council to keep up the dialogue and keep our open spaces for the dogs. I think they've done excellent jobs summarizing what it means to have a dog under control, so I hope that you keep up that dialogue. Thank you.
Thanks. Public participation, going once. Okay, items.
Patty Whitehouse, Rocky Point Road, and just very quickly, thank you for your explanation about the freedom of information issue. Not yet. But could you not ask for permission?
That is a matter that we have discussed, and I can't get into the specifics about that discussion, but it's not a path that we felt we could do right now. So,
Okay.
but thank you for thinking. So,
Thank you.
If I might take 5 seconds, if that's the reason, why was I able to get the first draft? There,
okay.
just leave it with you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else for public participation? Okay. Thank you very much, and we will now move on to the adoption of the, agenda item number 4, which is the adoption of minutes. So we have a community planning committee meeting of July 17th. Any comments?
Move adoption.
Councillor Gray moves adoption, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion? Okay, hearing none, call the question, move to adopt. Thank you very much, Terry. And then the special planning committee meeting of August 14th, and this is where we talked about the 4696 Beckingham Road as well as one other development variance permit. So do I have a motion to adopt? Mayor Little and Councillor Donaldson. Call the question, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much. That's adopted. Okay, moving down the agenda, we have agenda item number 5, which is the receipt of minutes. 3 sets of minutes from the Bufferland Working Group and then the Dogs and Metchosin Working Group. Now, I wonder if I could take the Bufferland Working Group minutes, all 3 at once, but are there any questions or points of discussion?
So I'll move receipt of the 3 sets of minutes for the Bufferland Working Group.
Seconded by Councillor F. And all in favor? Okay, that's carried. And now the Dogs in Metchosin Working Group. Any comments or a motion to receive?
Motion to receive.
From Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Gray seconded. And all in favor? That's carried. Councillor Gray?
Just wanted to ask, it would be great to get some signs up about dog disposal waste at the beaches. And so I see it here, I'm hoping we can move that along as soon as or staff will be able to move that along as soon as they get a letter.
Okay. Thanks. We have talked about that at some point. I forget where the discussion went. When we're talking about signs, of course, there is a budget element to it. I'll connect further with staff on this, and also, I don't know if it's a matter of parks and trails, but yeah, we should look at that further. So, okay. I have it as an action here to follow up with interim CAO Sooke, or from Ms. Matheson.
If I might, I think the reason why you're having a hard time recalling is because it was last term. Last term, in the recommendations from the Dogs in Metchosin Working Group, the council decided to accept all the recommendations. One of the recommendations was signage. It wasn't done. That's why it's been forwarded to this council. So it has been a passed resolution. I still think it's a great idea. And so we should put it in the budget and then move on, unless you can have a discussion with Councillor Donaldson to see if there is money within the budget to be able to use, and there may be some money set aside for signage.
Okay.
So that was recommendations from the Dogs in Metchosin Working Group from last term.
Great. Okay, thank you. Was there, Mayor Little, do you recall this, an indication of how many signs?
Oh gosh, I don't remember it was
How many beaches do we have?
well, the beaches, yeah, that is the number of beaches that we have plus the prominent trails, such as the trail around.
Beaver Trail, Metchosin Music.
Yeah, sorry, I'm blanking on the trail around Sea Bluff Trail, yeah, where that was the whole instigation of this Dogs in Metchosin Working Group was because of the conflicts between dogs and livestock at the time.
Okay. Great. Okay. I will strategize a way of bringing this forward, even if it's to the budget next year. Yeah, I can't imagine it's going to take a lot of money, but it's more just the time and focus to get it done. So, okay. We have moved, received, and carried Dogs in Metchosin Working Group. So we're next going to go to item 7, reports, and this is the staff report on the development variance permit for 1050 Matheson Lake Road. If I could, I'm just going to walk through this. Okay, so this is a 4-hectare, 10-acre, just under 10-acre property, and the planner's report describes this as having steep slopes with rocky outcrops and native vegetation. The DPP is for a detached suite. The suite is to be located 38.45 meters from the principal dwelling rather than the allowed 15 meters. The dwelling itself is 92.9 square meters, and that's just under 1,000 square feet. What is allowed under our land use bylaw is 70 square meters or 753 square feet. So that is an increase of 246 square feet that the applicant is seeking. The planner notes that there's also a crawl space within the building plans that's not accounted for in the floor space. So in fact, the dwelling is quite a bit bigger than the actual stated 92.9 square meters, or just under 1,000 square feet. Okay, so as you see in the report, staff are not recommending that we move forward toward the increased size of the detached suites. And they point to policy, it's number 400.55, and you'll find this statement in that policy. To promote consistency, variance with regards to increases in suite size or reductions in the minimum lot size to accommodate detached secondary suite will generally not be recommended by staff. So that's what they're pointing to. And again, toward that, consistent with that, they have recommended denying the application. So committee, I have my own views and thoughts on this, but I would turn to you for your thoughts as well. And one thing I would note is that the options and the recommendation there on page 29, the one option is as we've traditionally done, authorize the mailing of the notification to landowners within 60 meters, and we might even authorize a site visit. We could also table the application, request further information from staff or the applicant, and the third is to deny the application. So, committee, any thoughts? Councillor Gray.
I would just say the logic of the staff recommendation is clear and the policy is clear from council previously. I'm curious to hear the views of others.
Councillor.
Yeah, I think this application is just too far removed from, from what is allowed. It's, it would set a really bad precedent in the community, and I just can't agree with this.
Councillor Donaldson.
I would agree with Councillor Epp on that. We had a variance not too long ago where the distance was significant from the principal residence. I was the only one that opposed that at the time. There are other variables, of course. This one is also, there's a distance from the primary residence, but the proposal is a significant size of house on an upland zoned parcel of land. And if we look in the OCP, I believe that there's some verbiage there about designification of upland zoning and some parameters. I'm very supportive of what the planner has recommended here, and I too have some more thoughts. I'd like to hear the rest of what the committee has to say.
Fairly.
Yeah, I concur. I can't remember when the planner has actually recommended we deny an application. Usually the planner recommends that we at least do a site visit. So with this being said and looking at the OCP guidelines as well as the potential legal impacts, I think I would vote to the third option, which is recommended by the planner.
Okay. I'm with everybody. I don't support this application. We have seen over the last few months, there have been variance applications that have come with extended distances from the home. Those have all been about trying to minimize environmental damage, the removal of trees. But all have been within the confines of the allowed sizes, and this one clearly is not. I believe that approval would signal a big change in our approach, and I'm not prepared to do that. So I would also support recommendation number 3. And with that, there's a consistent view at the table. Can I have a motion toward that effect? So, Councillor Donaldson, you're going to make a motion to recommend option 3?
Motion for option 3 for sure.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? It's Councillor Epp. And any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Great. And none opposed. Thank you very much. Okay. I believe that the next item is the councillor's update. Is that correct? That's the last item. It is, okay. So just a few items on this one. The Bufferland Community Input Session will be held on Wednesday, October the 4th. Wednesday, October the 4th at 7 p.m. So this is what was approved as a terms of reference for the Bufferland Working Group is that we would hold all of our meetings are in public, but we'd also hold 2 community information sessions, one at the beginning of the process, which we did in May, and the second in just as we were wrapping up. So we will provide information about our recommendation and get input from the public. What do they think of it? What have we missed? Are there any other alternatives that we should be thinking of? And all this is working toward a final report that we are aiming to provide council in terms of our recommendations at the October 23rd meeting. So, and again, I just want to thank all of the members of the working group. They've been a great team to work with. And the one issue that I thought of bringing people together, I thought it was going to be the biggest challenge, but it's actually turned out to be really great in terms of people's schedule and whatnot. So, yeah. So, October 4th. The next item on my update is the Centre Mountain Stormwater Detention Pond, but I'm actually going to defer comments until the council meeting. I noticed there's a report from our contracting engineer on this one. Okay, so the next item is short-term rentals. And I am proposing a discussion in October on short-term rentals as they are in Metchosin. Sorry, where are my notes here? Okay, so we raised this topic, I think, earlier in the spring, and at that point, we just did not have the capacity to take on anything else. So what I did ask residents to do is to begin, observing and building their thoughts about what short-term rentals mean in this community. And of course, all this takes place within the context of housing. And what other communities are finding, especially the bigger ones, is that short-term rentals appear to be having a very negative impact in terms of rental availability on a longer-term basis. So we've talked about that potential for groups like volunteer firefighters or agricultural workers. So I will be interested in hearing what the community has to say about what they perceive as impacts, and property owners as well who may have short-term rentals. The idea is not to pillory anybody, but it's to find out what people see as the impacts. So along the way with this, we'll cover Metchosin's current policy on short-term rentals. We'll review some research and trends in terms of STRs, and we'll see again what, if any, people perceive as the impact on the long-term rental market, and then open it up. We'll probably do discussion by way of public participation. I thought for a little while that we might do a special planning committee meeting on this. That just adds more burden to staff and us as well. So, yeah. So that's October 16th. Councillor Craig.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Sooke, is there a way that we can, these are two really important meetings. The Bufferland one on October 4th, and then this short-term vacation rental on October 16th. And we've got in our minutes, we've announced it tonight, but I don't know how we let more people know about these things, but we should think about some kind of communication plan, because these are important and interesting topics for people to attend.
Yeah.
And I guess we have the Muse, maybe the Muse will be out, well, just before that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Can I make a
Please.
comment?
Thank you.
So one of the things, and I brought up a few times, we seem to always miss it, but think about it later. We have a marquee out there, and people drive by it all the time. Put it up in advance. It's amazing how much you can get people noticing things. So it's just a matter of going through staff, fire chief, or maybe Jacob. There's a box of letters and stuff, and somebody would be happy to explain it to you. I could, because I've done it before. But that's a really good tool to use, as well as all the usual ones that we have, and certainly our website.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. No, thanks. That's a great point about promotion. Of course, we have Facebook as well. Yeah. And I sometimes put stuff on there, but I'm generally kind of scared of it. So we'll find somebody to be the guinea pig. So, okay. One other update. The Weir Beach stairs, and my hope was that we would have been able to move toward opening the Weir Beach stairs, and it's just not been able to come to pass. And I don't think it's anyone's fault. It's one of the things I have to say with working in a district where we try and manage resources and taxes to residents is we often have limited resources in terms of engineering support. And we've just not been able to get this to the top of our consulting engineer's plate. And again, it's just because there's so much work, so much on his plate right now. We haven't forgotten it. I just want to mention that to everybody, and we'll try and get moving as soon as we can. The reopening of the Weir Beach stairs. So that is it for my report, and that is also it for except for receipt of the correspondence. Thank you very much. Council, anything further? I'm sorry, I don't have the letters immediately in front of me. Sorry. We have a letter from Mr. Kalenda expressing support for the DVP, 1050 Matheson Lake Road. And that is it, actually. So, okay. I don't think we have to do we do a motion to receive? I think so. Yeah. Okay. With that, that is the agenda for the planning committee meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you very much. Councillor Gray and Councillor Donaldson, and all in favor of adjournment. That's carried. Thank you so much, everyone.